You don't even know if
It
she's
doesn't
like
matter.
the quality
It does not matter. I'm sorry.
I see.
By the way, that money you save is not worth the honor that you compromise.
It is such a big deal.
It's a massive deal.
I think the mistake they made, and I've said on my podcast, she should have never become the CEO and chairman overnight. Because now when people have questions, you got to answer them, right? You're not just a grieving widow, but you very quickly decided that you were equipped to be Charlie.
What if the most dangerous thing someone could do to a dead man's legacy wasn't erasing him, but selectively keeping him alive? Because that's exactly the situation people are now whispering about inside conservative circles. And the woman who allegedly blew the entire thing open is someone who has never been afraid to burn it all down.
It's very easy to kind of sit in your Western armchair and be like, oh, Israel's terrible. Well, you're able to enjoy free speech rights and a lot of rights here in the West that Iran used to have. And if you are serious about actually protecting human rights, you should want to make Iran Western again.
That clip you just heard is the question people have been unable to shake. And it leads directly into something that has the internet genuinely divided right now. According to Candace Owens, Turning Point USA, the organization Charlie Kirk literally built from the ground up, maybe using his own old videos to quietly dismantle the very image he spent years constructing. Not to honor him, not to preserve him, but, reportedly, to reshape him into something more useful for the people now running the show. And here's where it gets messy, because Charlie Kirk practically was TPUSA. He founded it, he scaled it, he turned campus debates into viral moments, and made himself one of the most recognizable faces in conservative media. So the idea that his own digital footprint could allegedly be getting weaponized from the inside, that's not a small claim. That's a 5-alarm fire. Now the moment that really cracked the story open happened on Twitter. And it wasn't subtle. Turning Point USA posted an old clip of Charlie Kirk talking about Iran. A clip where he argued that anyone serious about protecting human rights should want to, quote, make Iran Western again.
That sounds good, but that's pathologically insane. I'm sorry. It is. How do you know it's going to be better? Yeah, the Ayatollah is awful. But maybe he's one of the few guys that can keep that country together and not have a 90 million person civil war.
On the surface, it looks like TPUSA was honoring Charlie's foreign policy views. They posted it right after Trump's strike on Iran, clearly framing it as if Charlie would have stood behind that escalation. But within minutes, and this is the part that stopped everyone cold, the post got hit with a community note. And that note completely changed everything. It read that the clip predated Charlie Kirk's June 2025 statement calling regime change in Iran pathologically insane, and that he had explicitly opposed war. Because here's what people sometimes forget. One of Charlie's last and most clearly stated positions before his death was that a war with Iran would be reckless, devastating, and wouldn't benefit Americans or Iranians. Interview. That's not a man who sounds conflicted. That's a man who had made up his mind. So once people saw that community note sitting right underneath TPUSA's post, the entire framing of that tweet collapsed. It no longer read like an organization honoring its founder. According to a growing number of people online, it read like someone digging up an outdated clip to push a narrative that Charlie had already publicly rejected before he d.ed. And to Candace Owens, this wasn't just a careless mistake. She allegedly saw it as the first visible sign that someone inside the TPUSA was actively trying to rewrite Charlie Kirk's legacy in real time. But this also isn't coming out of nowhere. Because according to Candace, the slow drift away from Charlie's actual positions started long before that Iran post. And she says it traces directly back to when Erica Kirk took control of the organization. When Charlie was KL'd last September, the future of TPUSA was suddenly wide open. The entire movement had been built around one man, and he was gone. So the question of who would step in became urgent almost immediately. The answer came fast. Erica stepped up and took the helm, and on paper, it was framed as protecting Charlie's legacy and keeping his mission alive.
Erica thing is like, you gotta be at some level terrified, right? It's either the greatest evil that ever happened, or she's terrified, she's in this position. And I think the mistake they made, and I've said on my podcast, she should have never become the CEO and chairman overnight. Because now when people have questions, you gotta answer them, right? You're not just a grieving widow, but you very quickly decided that you were equipped to be Charlie. Well, guess what? That's gonna be a trial by fire.
But not everyone bought that framing, and Candace Owens was the loudest voice pushing back from the very beginning. According to Candace, Charlie was a deeply traditional Christian man who put family first above everything else. And in her view, that meant he would have wanted something very different for his family after his death. She has alleged on her podcast that the decision to make Erica both CEO and chairman overnight was a serious mistake because it placed a grieving widow in a position where she would inevitably have to answer for the organization's actions, whether she was ready or not.
And I know this award is about legacy. It's about my legacy, our children's legacy, my husband's legacy, but it's also about your legacy.
And Candace didn't stop there. She argued publicly that Erica should have stayed home with their children to help them grieve, noting that Charlie had reportedly left behind more than enough financially that running the organization was never a necessity. But that's not what happened. Erica stepped in, and then people started noticing something. The more decisions got made inside TPUSA, the more it seemed like Charlie's original positions were quietly being softened, reframed, or in some cases replaced entirely by a version of him that was easier to market. And then Candace released episode 2 of her investigative series on Erica, titled Bride of Charlie, and that's when she stopped holding anything back. In that episode, she didn't just question Erica's leadership decisions. She went directly at her character. Candace described Erica and her mother Lori as allegedly fame-hungry individuals who had been chasing the spotlight long before Charlie ever passed away. According to Candace's reporting, even before the assassination last September, Erica's mother was allegedly the one constantly in her ear, coaching her on which rooms to work, which powerful people to connect with, and how to position herself in front of cameras whenever the opportunity arose.
Says that Lori, Erica's mother, is exceedingly problematic. Exceedingly problematic. What people have said to me is she is the person, has always been the person in Erica's ear. Like she's this type A person that tells her who to go after in each and every room. She knows who those people are, who Erica should instantly transform into, what she has to.
Now, whether those specific characterizations are accurate is disputed, but the broader pattern Candace pointed to is harder to ignore. After Charlie's death, Erica did an extensive run of high-profile television interviews, consistently positioning herself as the guardian of his legacy. And for a while, the public largely accepted that framing. But Candace says the real story isn't the interviews. It's what's allegedly been happening inside TPUSA while the cameras were rolling out front. Because according to her, the organization Charlie built to drive ideas and inspire young conservatives has reportedly been shifting its focus heavily toward merchandising, branding, and monetizing his name and image. And then she dropped what she called the receipt. An audio recording allegedly leaked, capturing Erica speaking just days after Charlie's death, reportedly laughing and sounding energized about how much money TPUSA had already made from merch sales tied directly to Charlie's name.
We had thousands that were registered to vote. I think we're at like over 200,000 for merch sales. Don't quote me on that because I think it just keeps like bumping up like crazy.
Let that land for a second. Charlie had barely been gone for a few days when that audio was allegedly recorded. And Candace did not mince words about how she sees it. She described turning a dead man's name into a revenue engine within days of his passing as, in her words, possibly the most evil thing someone could do to his legacy. Now, you can agree or disagree with how Candace is framing all of this, but here's the part that even her critics have had a hard time explaining away. Because it's not just the Iran clip, it's not just the alleged audio. Something else started happening quietly in the background, barely a month after Charlie.ed, and a lot of his longtime fans didn't even notice it at first. His content started disappearing. Spotify first, then Apple Podcasts, then clips and full episodes began vanishing from YouTube. People who had followed Charlie for years suddenly found that episodes they had already saved was simply gone. And that raised the most uncomfortable question of this entire story. Why would the organization that claims to be protecting Charlie Kirk's legacy be removing the very archive of his voice? In a tweet that spread quickly, Candace pointed the finger directly at Erica, alleging she gave the order as CEO. A TPUSA staff member reportedly fired back and blamed the streaming platforms themselves. But here's the problem with that explanation, and this is the part people miss. Streaming platforms don't simultaneously pull content across multiple services unless there's a direct removal request from whoever controls the rights to that content. Which means, whether it was Erica's direct order or not, someone who controls Charlie's catalog made a decision. And when you line that up next to old clips being resurfaced out of context on the organization's official account, a very specific and deeply unsettling picture starts to take shape. Someone, allegedly, appears to be deciding which parts of Charlie Kirk's voice the public is still allowed to hear and which parts need to quietly disappear. Now, none of this has been proven in court. The full truth of what's happening inside TPUSA is disputed, and the people at the center of these allegations have not confirmed the majority of what Candace has claimed. But the conversation online has already gone far beyond a single bad tweet. Screenshots of that Iran post circulated for days. The replies became a full-on pile-on, with people accusing TPUSA of actively dishonoring the man they publicly claim to be representing. Some comments were measured, some went to places that are harder to verify. But the core tension, the one that won't go away, is this. Charlie Kirk built one of the most influential conservative organizations in modern American political history. He spent years putting his beliefs on record, loudly and publicly, including his final blunt stance that war with Iran would be pathologically insane. And now, allegedly, the organization that carries his name is circulating an old clip that directly contradicts that position, right after a major military escalation, with no context and no correction until the internet forced one. So the question I'll leave you with is this. If an organization is willing to use a dead man's own words against his final, most clearly stated beliefs, what does that actually tell us about who's really in control? Drop your thoughts below, because I have a feeling this story is nowhere near over.